today we got to play
Tungaroo.
So this is a dice placement moving around the board game, but before we get into it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, because
You like placing dice and moving around boards.
actually I think it more has to do with board games. If you like board games, come hang out with us. Alright, so let's talk about quality of components. They have wooden shaped resources. You got your pearls, you got your shells, you got your coconuts, you got your little fishies. Fish. Anyway, and then your monuments are kind of like, they're just broad bricks.
In this regular edition, there's a deluxe version that I guess was the Kickstarter edition that has actual screen printed statues, and then you do have screen printed workers in your which are nice.
Yeah.
And your score markers are screen printed as well.
Yeah, which I think are really pretty cool. Overall, they do have a glossy finish on the tiles. The thickness, though, is actually pretty decent. The board is a thicker cardstock. I don't really think it needed anything more. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
We didn't have any issues. It was definitely functional. It was playable.
For the best part of this, no punching. Everything was individually bagged, and everything was already put together in the box. Didn't have to do anything to get it ready to play.
Now, I will say the cardstock in this actually has a linen finish.
Yeah, the cards themselves, yeah.
Yeah, so there's...
And they're oversized tarot cards.
Yeah, oversized tarot cards. Overall, it does give a nice appearance. I like the components. So, I'm at a 7.5.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm at. The deluxe probably would have pushed it up to an 8. The deluxe, the difference in it is that you do get the wooden screen printed totems for the statues, and then you also get additional tiles in both of the nomads, and they have tiles that you use after your first game to replace the individual actions at the islands and move them around, but they would give you additional ones to swap out with.
Okay, now what is the price point for this game?
Well, let me get through all the stats on it. This was a 2020 release. Board Game Geek rating is 7.0. Board Game Geek rank is 42.95. It's 2 to 5 players, average length of 45 to 90 minutes, and age 14 and up again. I don't know why everything's 14 and up lately. This one does not need to be, I don't think. Probably, I don't know, about 12 probably would be good. Designed by Louis Malls and Stefan Malls. Art by Andrew Bosley. Published by Alley Cat Games. It's got an MSRP for the basic game of $45.99. Card House has it in stock for $31.49, Miniature Market for $33.99. So again, it looks like Card House is the right way to go for this one. Geek Market, however, if you do want the deluxe version, someone right now is selling it new for $40. You know, shipping obviously will be on top of that, but still, you would get the deluxe Kickstarter version.
You haven't bought it already?
Well, I got this one.
No, I tease because this is one of his... So I ended up getting this as a Christmas gift I got to Randy because it was on his list. And I did see it was at our local gaming store, so I ended up picking it up. But normally when Randy sees deluxe, like your deluxe, it was not on that list that there was deluxe for me to hunt
I
down.
didn't even know it was a deluxe. Again, this was one I don't even remember having on my list. I'm sure the reason it's on my list is because I like dice placement games, and I saw this was a dice placement game with a fairly high rating.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying I did an excellent job.
You
I
did.
got exactly what you told me to get.
You did. And it survived the flood. So,
all right. So, let's move on to the theme. So you are island traders, and you're going to different islands, and you're harvesting resources, maybe trading some resources, recruiting people to join your mercantile group ship. And you...
Mercantile group ship?
Well, well, you know what? You have a ship. You're a mercantile group, but it's not, whatever. Anyway,
You're islanders. You go and trade shells and pearls and coconuts.
You're still a trader. You're still a merchant. I don't know. Anyway, long story short, I actually thought it was a good theme. I was playing a certain Disney, Islander theme. Playlist, maybe from Disney.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you.
Yes.
So I was listening to that the whole time, and I was really grooving the theme because I was singing and dancing the whole entire time. So I was feeling it, and I liked it. I liked the art. I thought the art was pretty cool. I think they did a realistic job, and I liked it. I thought it was fun. What about you? What are you thinking on theme?
It's okay. I mean, it's definitely doesn't feel like the gameplay is Islander, but I mean, it makes sense with what you're doing in the game. It's the art's pretty. There's not a lot of it. I mean, it's the characters on the tiles, and then the board is kind of a basic ocean, but it's still pretty. I think that the cards have nice art on them too. They match the different styles of the different people in the game. So I think it's a pretty game. I don't think it's anything super involved. I'll give it a 7.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's not integral to gameplay, but it is trading, and it's nice to see some different trading type games, and I think this is cool. I liked it, so I appreciated it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm with you on a 7.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So now let's talk about the actual rule book.
Okay. Again, full page cover. We've been getting a lot of these lately, and I like to see that. 16 pages. The
art is pretty.
It does very nice pictures, and there are a lot of pictures in it. And it was an easy read. It wasn't, it wasn't difficult to find anything in here. The only complaint I had is there's no cheat sheet for the iconography. It's in the game rulebook throughout, and then on the back is kind of an explanation of the actions that the cards take. But there's not a whole lot of, there's a little bit on the nomads down here at the bottom as far as what they do. It's not bad. I just wish they would have given those cards for each player that had it. But the rules are pretty basic, and it's a pretty simple game overall. And it does a good job of conveying everything, and it's laid out in an intelligent way. I mean, it makes sense and flows the way it's laid out. I'll probably give it an 8. I think it's a pretty good rule book.
Okay, awesome. All right, so now let's move on to the actual gameplay. So you will start by the last player choosing the location of their ship. And when I do that, I'm going to actually, I'll go here for right now. All right, and then I'm going to... I get to pick any of my not any, the top of the culture or any of these. Well, I'm going to need room for my people, so I'm going to take this one, and I am going to save this one because this lets me put on a worker cheaper, and at the very beginning that might be super useful for me.
So what she's doing is covering one of the nomads and basically reserving that nomad. She can buy it at her leisure now or acquire it. I cannot acquire that nomad. And you have, as she was mentioning, there's a culture track where basically you have to take them in order, but then there's also 2 that are holding up and blocking locations where you can play nomads. You have 4 face-up nomads that you can trigger when you acquire them that you can hold, but you only have 2 at the beginning unless you open that up.
Now keep in mind, you can have as many nomads as you want. You can just only have so many out.
Yes.
So
they count for in-game scoring, so you want to collect them.
Yeah, and so as soon as they're turned over and put in the discard pile, pretty much you can't get them back out. Like they're discarded. So you got to be aware of what you're keeping and what you're putting in the discard pile.
And then you have one that's blocking one of your last places for resources. You have 6 resource slots, but one of them's filled with it. So you get to choose which of the ones you want to take from either the top of the culture track or any of the other cubes. So I'll put it here, and I'll place, I can go there, I'll go here. And then I will take the one off my resource track, and I'll put it on this screen here.
Okay. All right, so then what we're going to do is, he's first player, he's going to roll the 3 dice.
Yes, there's 4 dice, but one of them is reserved for a specific card. So I got a 1, 2, and 2. Wonderful roll.
Now, if he were to roll 3 2s, you would re-roll. And we did not have to do that this game, but he got close a couple times, and he loves low numbers.
Apparently.
This is why we don't let Randy roll.
Then we each choose one of our leaders from our hand. We all have the same hand to start the game, but that will change throughout the game.
Now, I will say, so you have 5 cards, but this is kind of a note. We only used 3 of these. No, you didn't end up using
No, we used 4 of them, but it was a dumb move.
Okay, so take that for what you will. All right, so we're each going to pick one. I'm going to do the one we never used. All right.
Oh, that doesn't sound good. I think we should.
No. Okay. All right. Ready, set, flip. All right. Now I ended up choosing the beggar.
I chose the worker.
All right.
So these are
Randy-
numbered 1 through 5. Worker is the first one. So all that means is I roll this die and I place it on my card. I have a 6 now, so I have an extra die to use during the dice placement.
Now I get to steal from my neighbor.
I choose which one to give you.
Do
And
you
yes,
really? Oh, bummer.
I have to give you a resource, but I get 3 victory points in exchange. So it's not a horrible thing, but yeah, I'll choose to give you a shell.
That's the one I didn't need.
Well,
Bucko.
sorry. There you go.
That'll be fine. I'll work with it. All right. So that's the instant action. Then we have a dice placement action that we can also take on the cards. Each card has something different. Like I have a coconut for a 6.
I have for a 5, I can get a pearl.
Now they do have a second dice placement that only triggers when you have 3 to 4 players.
Or 5.
Or 5. So basically not 2.
Yeah.
And then you have a one-time ability with that card. So for the beggar example, you use one less resource when you're recruiting, and we'll go over that here in a minute. And
Whenever I decide to take a resource from the board, I can take 2 additional of it.
All right, so Randy's going to take one action because he is first player. So
Because I'm cool like that.
You are super cool.
All right, so the first thing I want to do is I've got a, well, I don't have any additional fish. I need some fish. I should have got one of those. But I can go ahead, I can take one of these dice and spend it at that location. And I can pay a coconut and a pearl. And I can take, because the cost of this tile is a coconut and a pearl, I can take this tile. And now this one will let me in the future, since I have it on my board, I can spend a die here to cash in 1 to 3 fish for 5 victory points each.
Yep. But the thing is now he gets to place a monument. Now you only get to place a monument when you recruit, only if you do not have a monument at that location, or you have a monument in every location, and so you can put a second one on there.
And then I can choose one of the adjacent, these are called migration tiles, or islands. And I'm going to migrate one of these into this location, and then we will backfill from the pile. This should be turned over, and we will backfill there. So now this determines the end of the game. When this runs out and these 4 migration islands are empty, that triggers the end of the game.
Okay. All right. So for me, I am going to tap this, spend up 2 pearls. I'm also recruiting because that sounds like fun. Woohoo! And it lets me modify my dice. So if you'll notice, some of these tiles have instant actions or one-time actions. They also have forever abilities, or in Randy's case, a one-time use per round. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Some trigger income for you.
Yes. So fun stuff. All right, it's your turn.
All right. Well, the 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 2 roll is not a great one for where we're at here. But I'm going to go ahead and play here. That is 4 to 6 gives me a shell. And since I have the ability, I'm going to tap this and I can take 2 additional of that. So I got 3 shells for that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so then I am actually going to spend my 2 and on a location, and I'm going to be able to place a worker there. Now, that worker has a couple of things that it can do. So it can trigger to build a monument or recruit, I should say, or it can trigger the trade action, and you don't have to spend a die to do it. So in a 2-player game, basically you have your 3 dice and your 2 workers that you can trigger actions on. So not every round do you have, or every turn do you play necessarily a die. You could also use a worker to take an action or use one of your one-time use tiles. So just kind of keep that in mind. So in a given turn, or in a given round, you could possibly have 5. But I noticed in the last, because I didn't place my workers appropriately towards the end of the last game that we played, I didn't get to use all my workers a lot of the time, right? Because they're not as flexible just because of location. Although... well, we'll talk about that here in a minute. All right. So, that's my turn. I placed a worker down.
All right. I'm going to go take this 2, and I'm going to assign it here, but I'm going to use the trade action. So I can use any die to do a trade action, but I take a shell and I trade it in and I get a pearl. Now, another person could come here and trade in this location, and if so, they could either do the same thing I did, placing a shell and taking a pearl, or they could choose to take the shell that I played for free and not have to pay anything for that.
Yep. All right, so then I'm going to trigger my worker, okay? So I can do that. So I can play a fish and 2 shell. So you are going to lay down your worker when you use it, but do keep in mind that it does reset at the next round, okay? So just be aware. All right, that goes there, and then I get to move something up. All right. There we go.
Back to Phil. And I've got one more here. Got a pearl, I got a fish, I got that. You know what, I want some more fish so I can get one of those guys down. So I'm going to trade a pearl, same thing I did last time. I'm trading a pearl over here to get 2 fish. And you could always use a location that's next to your boat or that you have one of your workers at. So now I have plenty of fish. I'm not dating anyone, I just have that on my board.
All right, so let's see. I realized I did something wrong.
What did you do?
Well, when I placed down my worker, I forgot to pay my 2 fish.
Oh, yeah, that's a problem. Because then you use the 2 fish to buy something?
Yeah. Yep. So we'll take that back and we'll say we used a worker for that ability.
She even cheats in demonstrations.
Well, I forgot he needed fish because we placed the workers like super early on in the game. But it is in the cheat sheet, so there's that. So just keep that in mind if you would like some fish.
So you're done with actions, right? Because you played your dice.
Well, the 2 was to place the worker, so that wouldn't have counted. So I would have just used it to do that then. So I still would have had to do that.
Oh, so you still have one.
So basically, I just didn't get to play the worker. Let's see what else I can do. You know what? I'm going to pick up a pearl because that sounds cool. And we need to backfill. All right, I'll take a pearl. Run this song. And then...
And that's the end of the round.
All right. All right, that is the end of the round. Okay, so to reset the board, you're going to take all your people and stand them in the up position. You're going to take your dice back. Then you're going to trade cards. You're going to put this in your hands. And then we're going to continue on playing. Now, so that's how the round works. But let's go over all of the special ability cards. So we already did the worker. So next up is the chief. The chief, it basically allows you to take first player and then exchange tiles that are already on the board. So for example,
that's the last one, but yeah.
Yeah, so if I really wanted this one and I wasn't at the appropriate location, I could just switch tiles with his ability. And again, it's that 1 time per round, and then also taking first player at the beginning of the round. And so that's end of round. Okay, we've already went over the worker. All right, so then the fisher allows you 1 free fish in the round. And if you don't use it, you lose it.
Or you can store it.
Or you can store it if you have space available. And then you also get to do 1 free sail action. So that's 2 movement of your ship, a 3rd if you want to spin a fish. And then again, that's a 1 tapped ability. Then the next one is the trader. The trader, at the beginning of the round, you get to do a free trade action. And you don't need to use a die or people to do it. And then you also have the ability to do any type of buying. And it doesn't matter what resources you use as long as they're the same number of resources. So that's all the other cards. The different other actions. So we didn't talk about sailing. So sailing is moving your ship. So there's these little lines. And you can move 2 spaces for 3, a 3rd one for a fish. The next one is harvest, which is where we paid the die and got the resource over here. Then you can settle. So that's getting your worker, placing your worker. Don't forget to pay the 2 fish like I did, because I'm good at that. So you have to pay a die and 2 fish. And then your trade action, again, you have to play a die or tap a worker. And then you have to put your resources on here and get that resource. traveling. So if I had a worker, right, I can travel. So I can move one adjacent, but when I do that, it lies me flat. Now, again, if you're not in the right location, see, I didn't use this or I didn't understand this rule till the very end of that last game, and I could have moved that guy in a better position because I hadn't used him for like 3 rounds. So, but I didn't want to waste a turn on moving him. But if I had known he could move himself, that would have been super
He can move
useful.
himself, or you can spend a die, but you have to be adjacent to the island to trigger it because you have to spend the die where the guy is.
Yeah. All right, and then the recruit action. That is where you spend the resources to be able to take up the tile and possibly build a monument if you haven't already built one at that location, or if you've built at every location.
Right, and the in-game scoring is very much like Concordia with the cards. In this case, it's the tiles, but you're collecting sets of the same kind of scoring mechanism, and I like that element. That was it felt very much like Concordia.
Well, I mean, and I was picking, I was choosy about what I wanted to get, right? So it's like, okay, and then when I was able to focus a little bit. I do think that would be more interesting with more players because you could tell where you were collecting, certain 3. I was collecting a certain 3. We didn't really fight over too many. But I think it'd be interesting to see with more players because I think there would be a little more.
Yeah, I mean, my only grievance, I think, really with this game is it felt like that was the main scoring mechanism, and it was almost just a free for all to grab those tiles, as opposed to, I mean, yes, you could get some points by triggering these scoring tiles along the way by paying resources for them, but we didn't do a whole lot of that. We did some of it, but not.
Well, I didn't get mine till the last 2 rounds, so I used it when I had it. But no, the most, if not all, most of the victory points were at the end game scoring.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that if that's knowing ahead of time because you can kind of do your math there, and be like, okay, this is what I need.
I mean, you still have to get the right resources to buy the tile, so that means you're going to be trading resources, acquiring resources. Mm-hmm. So there's still a lot of interplay with the different abilities. But like you said, we ended up only pretty much focusing on using the trader and the
Fisher.
Or the Fisher, not the...
Yeah.
It was the Fisher and the worker.
Yeah, Fisher and the worker. I used the trader twice, I think.
Yeah.
And then you used the chief once.
Dumbly at the end. Yeah, I should have... Because I was focused on I need 3 fish, and it gives me a ability to get 2, but I could have got 3 in one fell swoop if I used the worker and acquired a fish at a location.
Yeah. Well, and I think, if you have more players, chief might become more relevant because you do want first player. But Euro was just going to steal first player from me anyway, so I just figured why bother.
I didn't feel like first player was as relevant in a 2-player game. Like I said, with more players, I think it would be. But, I mean...
Now I will say, the beggar's a little take that, which I don't ever play, so I don't want to start no war.
Except for during demonstrations.
Except for during demonstrations to kind of prove a point, and I know I don't have to finish the game with Randy's Wrath, so it's fine. Mm-hmm. So overall, the mechanics, I think we're fine. I think it's a cute, short little game. I mean, a little more than cute. It's okay. It's a solid little trader game. I'm totally okay with it. I had fun.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's
I'm at a 7.5.
That's probably about where I'm at. 7.5. It's got light mechanics, but it does have that Concordia feel from the scoring, which I like.
Well, you have to pay attention to what you're doing, right? So it's easy to pick up, easy to play, but you do have to pay attention with what you're building, so...
And you definitely want to focus on trying to take 2 or 3 of the scoring mechanisms to collect the sets of it, because you can get the most bang for your buck. I mean, I scored a ton of points. I think I got 55 off of the plants, the flowers, but that was the only place I got points from, really.
Where mine was my people. I got 40 points because I got 4 of the people and I got 10 tiles, so, that's a substantial amount.
Whatever action you're taking the most of, you want to focus on trying to get scoring tiles to go along with that. I think it's got some neat considerations on the tiles you do take. I just wish there was a little bit more options for scoring because I always want more ways to score.
Throughout the game, during the game is what you're talking about.
Yeah, because first of all, this one lets you play any die for these. These are actually better than the one I had because the one I had, you had to pay a 4 through a 6. And as you said, I roll low apparently because I rolled nothing but 1s, 2s, and 3s during the game.
Yeah, you
pretty
can
much.
keep that to yourself. I don't need your rolls.
So I didn't have any way of altering the dice. You did, which
I
actually
did.
helped you.
That actually was quite helpful.
I had focused on production, and I had production stuff, and then I was generating coconuts that I could use to pay for my coconut engine to get 10 points each round, but I only got to fire it twice because I never got the dice that I needed to do it.
So sad. Not sad at all. I'm not sad
Mhm.
at all about that. So, like you said, 7.5?
Yeah, I think 7.5 is fair.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Check it out. See if you like it.
Yep.
All right, we'll catch you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.